Honestly, when the hot seaweed wasn't there yet.
Hello and welcome to Your Dad Learns StarCraft 2. Today I want to talk about a question I've seen new players ask, and that's when should you play against other people, or when should you start ladder? When should you start playing ranked mode? And there's not really, I see lots of blanket answers thrown at it, and I'll have a blanket-ish answer, but there's not really an exact time in which you need to start playing players or need to start playing ladder or anything like that. It's really just once you're comfortable doing that. So, some people are comfortable jumping right into ladder play and just starting right off against players. And if you've got like a good, I don't know if thick skin's the right word, but if you're ready to just get beat down relentlessly until you start learning, and that's a process that's fun and it works for you, then go for it. Just know that if you don't really play the game at all and then you just jump in and start playing against people, you're probably going to get kicked around a bit before you actually start winning games and figuring things out. Other people, and what I think is more common, is people like to play a little bit of the campaign, kind of get a feel for the game and the controls, and then they might play against a little bit of AI, and then after playing against AI for a little bit, they'll decide to start playing against players, maybe once they get bored with AI, something like that. And I feel like that way you have a better handle on what you're doing, so that if maybe you don't want to take that excessive amount of losses at the beginning, maybe that gets to you too much, it's probably better to start off against AI and then move on against people. So that's kind of like the quick, short answer. Just whenever you're comfortable and whatever gives you the confidence to go and play against people. Either way, you're going to take some losses and you're going to get some victories. That's how matchmaking is designed. You're supposed to lose as much as you win, basically, until you get to, once you're at your skill level. While you're trying to get to your skill level, you'll either win a lot more if you're playing above where you're currently placed, or you'll start losing a lot if you're placed above where you should be, and it'll catch you back down to around where you should be. And then once you get better, basically, maybe you'll learn a new fundamental skill like scouting, or maybe your macro game gets better. Once you improve part of your game, you'll just be stronger and you'll start to win more than you're losing, and you'll rise up until you even out again. And then you have to learn another fundamental part of the game. So that's the short answer. And I'll show you some screens in game and show you what I did to start off against players. Alright, so here we are in the Blizzard client StarCraft 2 app, or client, or whatever you want to call it. So this is from when I first started, 8 years ago or whatever, and played a little bit of the campaign. Laptop couldn't handle it. And then I came back about 8 years later. So first thing I did was I played a little bit of the campaign. I knew I wanted to play Zerg, so I didn't finish the Terran campaign. I just knew I wanted to play Zerg, knew I wanted to play against people fairly soon. So I jumped into the Zerg campaign. Played about a third of it until I started getting used to some of the units, used to building stuff. I hadn't seen things like banelings or roaches, ravagers, that type of stuff. Swarm hosts were a mystery. So I kind of went on the campaign to learn a little bit about that type of stuff and have some fun. So did that, came out, and in the Versus tab, there's a bunch of stuff at the top, testing tournaments, 1v1 teams. I did the training with Zerg for stage 1, 2, and 3. I played StarCraft 1, so this wasn't really difficult for me, but it let you get a couple practice matches where your options were limited, so it kind of gave you focus just because you couldn't choose from everything. And then I jumped into AI, and I did, instead of going to a custom game and playing against AI, they actually have this system where you can play against AI and I haven't done any 2Vs or 3Vs against AI. And as you can see, you have placement matches to kind of figure out your initial skill level. So I did that, and dropped me somewhere on this bar. And the bar, if you follow my cursor, goes very easy, easy, medium, hard, harder, very hard, elite. I was not at elite or very hard when I started playing against people. I can't remember if I was at harder or if harder was one that I would win some but lose more of them. Kind of had a little bit of issues with it. So when I started, to go back a pace, when I started against AI, so I knew I wanted to play Zerg, I knew I wanted to play against people, but I didn't know how people generally started. I looked up, I kind of looked at a couple forums and looked up a standard build, or at least a standard opening, because I knew that I wanted to make Hydralisks. StarCraft 1, Hydralisks were basically the unit that I made. They're my favorite unit. So I really liked just making Hydralisks, and I thought, alright, that's going to be my plan. How can I get to Hydralisks in an effective way? And turns out, a good standard economy opening is 17 hatch gas pool, which is the standard opening. So I looked up that and was like, alright, so I'll practice this opening. And then seems like roaches and hydras are, decent units that people kind of use together sometimes. And I found a macro exercise, which was just someone basically saying, hey, this is how I max out on roaches when I practice, and see if you can do it. So I thought, okay, I'll practice this build where I can max, get as maximum supply on roaches and try to attack. And that's basically what I did. And the main point where I diverged and went from playing against AI to playing, ladder against people was when the focus was taken off of me and kind of starting to get put on my opponent. So, very easy and easy. The AI doesn't really attack you. In easy, they might, but as long as you're building drones, you could even use your drones to repel their attack if you want to. Medium, they start to attack you with a small force at some point in the game, some point kind of early, so you need to have some safety units to prevent just being run over. And hard is the same way. They hit you with a decent army fairly quickly, so you need to, while you're trying to build your economy, you need to also make some units and prevent them from attacking you. And this has nothing to say against scouting, by the way. I did not really scout that much at the beginning. And I still don't scout a ton. That's one of the big things I need to work on. So, hard and harder, I would get into harder, and they would start doing kind of like one base, faster type attacks with roaches and stuff, or with other unit compositions from the other armies, from either Protoss, Ternia, whatever. And it was kind of like, okay, sometimes I would win, sometimes I wouldn't. And the difference would be, okay, I need to adapt to the play that they're doing off of this one base. But I noticed that most standard games, people don't do one base, like, where essentially one base all-ins and then try to macro up. So I'd be practicing a strategy that's basically was going to be against a very small subset of player games, but against the majority of the AI games. And I decided, okay, well, I know I need to macro better. I know, I could be a little tighter in that respect. But, when it comes to if I'm going to be going against, like, tailoring my build against a certain strategy, I'd rather just play against people and be tailoring a build to go against players instead of against AI. So that's kind of like where the focus shifted from, okay, how am I just maxing out and making sure that I'm managing my economy and my upgrades and my base and building an army, and then I'm attacking them and seeing how fast I can do that, and instead turning into, okay, I need to repel their first attack, which always comes at this specific point, and it's always with like these units, and I know if I build this I can take their one attack out, and then try to, like, you know, attack them in response with this many units, and where it became more of like a back and forth, which I've improved to the point where now, like, you know, harder and very hard aren't really back and forth for me. I haven't tried against Elite yet, actually, but you know, so obviously I had some points to that I could improve on, but it became more of I'm working on strategy, and I feel comfortable building my base, building my army, trying to get roaches and hydras, and I feel like I can go against people now and start learning against other players. And that's just the point for me that I reached where I thought, hey, I feel fine playing against other players, I'm going to do that now. If you're somebody that feels that you have to be able to dominate the elite AI before you start against players, that's fine if that's still fun for you. If you're just grinding it out because you want to get to ladder, but you feel like you have to max out the AI, you don't have to. I guess my only supporting claim for that is that when I did what I did and kind of got to where I was playing against the harder AI, I decided I'd start, okay, just start ladder. Very first game against people, all on ladder. I've only played on ladder. And after my 5 placement matches, I ended in Gold 1. And I believe it was after my next 2 games, I got promoted to Platinum. And yes, my promotion game was a little odd because the person was actually, they were beating me, and they just decided to quit. I don't know if they had to go somewhere, or, you know, I don't know why, so that was odd. But other than that, I think I had someone DC'd against me once in those games. So besides those 2 things, like, I still landed at the top of gold, then got to platinum, you know, within my first 10 games just doing this. And I couldn't beat, you know, the very hard AI, I couldn't beat the elite AI at that point. It's just I got to where I felt comfortable. And that's basically all you need to do. You need to get to a point where you feel comfortable in your execution of the game. Not that you play perfect or anything, but you don't feel lost while you're playing. And that would be my advice if someone's asking when should they start ladder, when should they play against people. It's when you feel like you're not going to be lost when you're trying to play. Like, you have an idea of what you want to do in the game, and you can execute that idea. Mine was, okay, I want to be able to max out on roaches and hydras while getting like +1/+1 upgrades and like upgrading, you know, movement speed, range, that type of stuff for hydras and roaches. And I got to where I could do that, got to where I knew that build well, and decided, hey, I'm ready. And I chose to play on ladder just because I feel ladder is the more consistent environment. I could be wrong, people can do weird stuff on ladder, they can do whatever they want. But I feel like you're more likely to play against people that are trying to be competitive on ladder, and I feel like that's just more consistent. That's just a bias, that's just what I think. So that's why I play on ladder. And yeah, that's the whole thing. That's all I did, and that's got me to platinum really quick. So yeah, hopefully if you had a question about when you should start against players, I know it's, you know, still kind of vague, but it's when you feel comfortable, when you feel like you've got a plan you want to try to execute, and you feel like you can execute it well. And the only kind of randomized factor for me was strategy, take that into account. And I'd rather learn that aspect, strategy and scouting and all that stuff, against players rather than against the AI, because the AI is going to do the same thing every time. Or approximately the same thing. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, feel free to like it, share it, subscribe, leave comments, especially if you have comments about any other topics you'd like me to discuss or you'd like to hear my take on. If you didn't enjoy that video, dislike button's down there as well. You can leave your constructive criticism and comments too. And until the next video, as always, I've been your dad. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.